everybody. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. Thanks for coming back. Hey, JC, how you doing?
They're like your captive audience that just never leaves you, Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, let me tell you. And that's like a really long yet impressive name at the same time. I'm thinking about your birth certificate, and I'm like, Wendy Sellers, the is probably the middle name, HR lady's last name at that point. Or maybe not. I don't know. How did you hyphenate? How did you choose to do that?
Hey, listen, the HR lady has trademarks on it, and I paid a lot of money for those trademarks, so I'm going to use them.
You know, could you, when you're born, could you have a trademark like on your name, on your birth certificate? I bet you could. I don't know. Anyways, enough about that.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, it's interesting. The topic that I want to talk about today, the reason I picked it is lately my phone's been ringing about this topic. So I was like, you know what? If multiple of my clients are asking this, not so random topic, but I just think, you know, everybody needs to know. I want to talk about the fact that, yes, a service dog is a reasonable accommodation, specifically under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
I'm kind of surprised that's how your phone's ringing and what it's about. See, for me, the phone's ringing, but it's all about voting or my insurance. There was a prince from Nigeria a little while back, but that's neither here nor there.
Well,
Wendy
I actually have a spam blocker on my phone, so they go straight to voicemail, and then they don't leave a voicemail.
That's why I can't reach you.
That's why I don't get that one.
I get it. Hey, guess what, though? According to the U.S. Department of Justice, approximately 80% of service animals, those users reported that their service dogs enhance their ability to work and increase their independence in the workplace, which overall highlights the critical role that these animals play in employment settings, Wendy. Now, service animals, is it just dogs? Talk to me.
So it's not just dogs, but generally speaking, it is. So here's the confusion with service animals, service dogs, service rabbits, whatever you're saying here. There is federal law and then there's state laws. And so once again, I have to remind our listeners that if you have employees in multiple states, and regardless of where the company is located, if you have an employee who lives in this state and another employee that lives in that state, whether they're remote or in person, you may and most likely do have to follow the state that they work and or live in, the law there. And so, you know, since the pandemic, but for many, many years, we've had these things called remote workers or just workers that might be salespeople, for example, and they've never come to the office because they're always on a plane, train, automobile. And now they're saying, hey, I need a service dog. I have an issue. I have a legit need for a service dog. My doctor has, recommended that I get a service dog. What are the rules for the workplace? And then we're sitting there going, oh, crickets, what do I do here?
To your point about service animals and honing in on that real quick, Ms. Wendy, look, under the American with Disabilities Act, ADA, I tapped into the ADA National Network just now, as well as did a little bit of quick research into the actual Americans with Disabilities Act to pull this out for all the listening audience today. So service animals, as defined under the ADA, are dogs that are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. The tasks performed by the dog must be directly related to the person's disability. Now, the ADA also allows miniature horses to be service animals if they've been trained to perform tasks for individuals with disabilities, provided that they are housebroken and can be accommodated within your facility, like Walmart. Now, while dogs and miniature horses are explicitly mentioned under the ADA, other animals are not recognized as service animals under federal law. This includes therapy animals, emotional support animals, and pets like salamanders or fish, which do not receive the same legal protections as service animals under the ADA. Emotional support animals to include llamas, which could be of any species, size, color, or anything that exists in the world. They may provide comfort and support through companionship, but are not trained to perform specific tasks related to a disability. This also rules out cats. Back to you.
Hey, my emotional support cat, gets me through the day. No, but this is very interesting to say, JC, and I want to repeat this again. Under the ADA, So the Americans with Disabilities Act does define a service animal as a dog that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with disability. However, then we have emotional support animals. So the ADA is federal, and then their states have their own rules. And what I always say is, listen, as long as you're complying with the minimum requirements of the law, then you as the employer can go above and beyond the law, meaning you can say, yeah, I'm cool with the horse coming in or a cat or this, that, or the other. But there's so many other things that we have to think about, up to and including allergies, or who the heck takes care of the dog, who walks the dog if this person can't do that. An emotional support dog and an emotional support animal, which is usually defined as ESA or abbreviated ESA, is not a service dog. It's not a service animal. We have so many things to think about. What I often see with companies, regardless of the size, and like, oh, I don't know, this employee's been here forever. We know they're not lying about their disability. We're friends with them. Yeah, just let them bring them in. It's fine. Well, then what often happens is other people start coming into the workplace saying, well, I want to bring my dog in too. You didn't ask them to get a medical, disclosure or get any medical information. So I'm just going to bring my emotional support cat in. And then that's when we have to go back and go, oh no, now we got to actually create a formal policy. So even if you have a small company of one person who is, they have a disability, it's legit, you don't necessarily need medical documentation, but just for the purposes of establishing procedure, you still may want to consider getting some medical documentation from their doctors. The other hand, I have clients who casual workplace, and they're like, we don't care if they're emotional support animals, if they're legit service animals. We don't care. Just bring your dog in. It's fine. Well, guess what happened there, JC?
The dog's barking while they're on the phone. The dogs are fighting with each other. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, my dog gets along with everybody. Oh, except for that dog. And so you still need to make the place safe for everyone else. You need to make the place, safe and comfortable in a working environment. If you're a call center and you have barking dogs in the background, that's not going to go over very well.
Well, you also got to consider the workplace too, right, Wendy? I mean, like if you have customers and people that are coming in on a regular basis, you got to think about them as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a call yesterday from one of my clients, and interesting enough, they're a veterinarian office, animal surgery center, and they said, we have an employee who uses a service animal. We know it's legit, even though they didn't complete any of the paperwork or anything like that, and that's fine. They said, but the problem is our customers are bringing in their animals, and the other animals don't like that dog is sitting out there. And she's like, I could just put her in a different role, right? I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you called me first. And she even texted me from another country because she was on vacation. And she's like, Wendy always tells me, just text her. And I was like, no, you do not go ahead and put her in a different role. That has to be an interactive process. It has to be a mutual agreement. It is illegal to say, well, where you have your dog makes other people uncomfortable, even though your dog is a legit service animal. We've proven all that. We've gotten all the paperwork, and other people don't like your dog, even though your dog's not doing anything. So we're going to go ahead and put you in a different role. No, that's going to be like ding, 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 discrimination against somebody who has a disability, whether it's short term or long term. For the folks that are under 15 employees, you may not have to comply with that. Why? Because the federal Americans with Disabilities Act requires businesses with 15 or more employees to allow official service dogs for employees with a physical or mental disability. So if you have 10 employees, you don't have to comply with the federal ADA, but there may be a law in your state that you have to comply with. And on top of that, you may just want to be a really, really, really great employer and say, even though we don't have to comply, we're going to go ahead and make sure that you're comfortable here and your service animal is comfortable here and that we're following the ADA guidelines. Does that make sense?
Yes. I've got something for you, too, when you're ready.
Sure, go ahead.
This puts a little bit of a spin and a bend on things. Again, as you're listening from the HR perspective, keep that hat on. In April 2024, a woman was banned from flying after refusing to sit next to a service dog on a flight. The woman claimed that she felt unsafe due to the dog and argued with flight attendants and the dog's owner. Despite attempts to resolve the situation, she continued to express her discomfort and was ultimately banned from future flights with this particular airline as well. This incident highlights ongoing debates about the presence of service animals in the workplace and on airplanes. Back to you.
So that's an interesting little conversation there too, because there is a difference between service animals as a customer and service animals as an employee. And so service animals as a customer, they actually have much more expanded rights, meaning, if I was disabled and I had a service dog and I walked into a store to buy, a shirt or something like that, they can't ask me for actual medical documentation or proof. You have to take the customer's word for it that it's a official service animal, which that's a whole other conversation. I'm not going to get there because that's not my business. But if you're an employer, you can say our policy here is to get official documentation, fill out this form, have an interactive process. Remember, whenever you're dealing with any kind of disability, every single conversation needs to be an individual interactive process. Just because you just had this conversation with John over here last week and you're talking to Mary over here this week, it still needs to be a unique conversation based on their unique needs and their unique medical situation. And on top of that, please keep all of the health information, all of the medical information confidential between you and the employee at hand. So sure, maybe it's HR and the employee, but the manager needs to know a little bit. The manager doesn't need to know what the medical situation is. They just need to know, listen, your employee talked to me. She or he or they have the right to bring in an animal according to the law and according to our policies. And that's all the information you need to know. Make sure also, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. Please
it really
continue.
is, because the other thing is, we often become friends with our employees and our coworkers. And that means that, you're going to get to know information about other people. And I don't care if you overheard it, if you overheard it or you heard it from them directly, zip it. That's the rule, regardless if you're an owner, an HR person, a manager, or even a coworker. If you find out confidential medical information directly from the person or from somebody else with hearsay, zip it and tell everybody else to zip it too, because it's not respectful and it may end up being discriminatory because there's something going on with that employee.
It reminds me of a gentleman by the name of Ted in Sarasota. Ted had glaucoma and developed anxiety based from that glaucoma and received a medical marijuana card and smokes the weed to calm himself down, and his employer accommodated. But then he wound up getting 2 service dogs, 2 pugs, one allegedly for either eye, and they look for different things. So now Ted shows up to work, high as a kite, doesn't know where he's walking, but he's got 2 pugs guiding him.
Interesting. So depending on what state you're in, you have to find out, are there any laws about, did you say it was an officially a service animal or was it an emotional support dog? Okay. Yeah. So if it's an officially an animal and that.
It's tricky because one is the actual service animal for the right eye. The left eye pug is emotional support. You're staring at me weird, I know, but I'm serious. But the dogs now rely on each other. So the service animal needs the emotional support dog to support the guy who's high.
So I'm going to go with, you need to call a lawyer.
That's a good idea.
In that state, because not only that, now you have the thing about somebody being under the influence at work, regardless if marijuana is legal or not in the country as a whole, which it probably will be at some point. But if it's legal or not in your state, they still should not be high at work, because that could be a safety issue.
Except it relieves the anxiety and alleviates the pain and the social stigma of glaucoma. Yeah, no, it's a whole thing. There's a lot there.
No, it is. It's an overlap of ADA, laws that now affect the workplace, in this case, marijuana laws, and then also ADA and service animals, then laws in that state. And then on top of that, it could even have things to do with OSHA as well.
Yeah, and he's part-time. He doesn't even have the health benefits. He comes in and fills the jug with salsa.
All right, now I think you're getting a little out of hand.
All right. So look, I got something for you. A survey by the Job Accommodation Network, JAN, found that 59% of employers experience no additional costs when accommodating service animals in the workplace, while 28% report a one-time cost with an average of about $500. This is a nominal investment, Wendy.
That's a very low investment. And I don't even care if you're saying like, hey, we're tapped out. We can't afford $500. You know what you can't afford? A lawsuit, not only from the employee, but directly from the ADA and the EEOC. So super important. Spend the $500. With that also said, what I wanted to mention was $500 might be a hardship for me, which no judge is going to say it is. I'm sorry. We'll just go with $5,000. $5,000 might be a hardship for my company, but it may not be a hardship for your company. So just because one company was approved as this is a hardship and you don't have to accommodate, it's not reasonable, doesn't mean that your company is. So we have to make sure that we have lawyers, HR consultants, we're reading the information and we're really using our brain. There's so many times I see companies saying, well, you know, how about we just don't hire that person that came to the interview with the service dog because I already see that it's going to be a problem. Oh, no, you already see that you're going to set up for a lawsuit because if you don't have any proof of the reason why you didn't hire them for their job, that they didn't have the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you needed, they are automatically probably going to assume, as I would, you didn't hire me because I have a disability and now I'm gonna sue you. Even if you win that lawsuit, you spent way more than $500, so, fighting the lawsuit. So the dollar amount is going to be different depending on what company you are and what your financials look like.
Ms. Wendy, as we're talking about like the potentials of working with that employee, like you were bringing up before about, trying to accommodate the service animal, we know that it's a nominal investment. There's many positives associated with that. But if something is problematic with the service animal in the workplace, do you want to role play with me real quick? What would that conversation be like?
Sure. I'd be like, hey, JC, I wanted to discuss some challenges we're facing regarding your service dog and customer concerns or employee concerns, coworker concerns. We're committed to accommodating your needs and want to explore all possible solutions. We've tried several adjustments, as you know, but if they aren't sufficient, we may need to consider other roles within the company. How do you feel about this? Do you have any suggestions?
I understand what you're telling me right now. In English, I understand you. What kind of roles are we talking about here with it? I mean, I like what the boss does upstairs. I'll go to that office. What are we talking? What are we talking about doing?
Thank you for being open to discussing this. We're looking at positions that are equivalent to your current one in terms of pay, benefits, and status. We'd like to ensure that any change is mutually agreed upon between you and I and meets your needs. So let's discuss a few of these options, ABC.
Okay,
so that's kind of how the conversation goes.
I would like that. I think that'd be very good. On my most recent performance appraisal, we didn't get into like some quality metrics, and I think that I actually might be qualified for a promotion in this situation at the same time. Could we go there?
Absolutely.
Seriously,
you
could?
have to be.
Even if it's not like an open position or anything, you could do that.
Listen, the company has to do everything it can to accommodate, especially if it's minor issues. If it's not the dog didn't bite somebody, right? The dog bit somebody, boom, they're out. They're not even being licensed as a service dog anymore. That's out. In fact, I have a friend right now who has, I think it's a legit service dog, and that dog is having medical issues and therefore not acting like it should be for a service dog. And that means that's no longer going to be a service dog. It's probably just going to be an emotional support animal.
Yeah.
So if she was using that for her business and for accommodations, the company could then say, no, your dog, whatever, is acting differently. You need to get it together or get it retrained, or we need to get you another service dog, or you need to get another service dog. Some of the things that I really just want everybody to know walking away from today's session is Number one, keep all this information confidential. Speak with the person who's asking for the service dog, or if in some cases the emotional support animal. Make sure that you're being consistent with all of if you're doing, employee A, employee B, employee C, be consistent with how you're handling everybody. And even if you're saying, Wendy, we haven't done anything with somebody else, we'll start now. Say, these are our policies and our procedures moving forward. Make sure that if an employee's doctor was not involved in the acquisition of the service animal, or the employee trained his own service animal, how do we know that they're legit trained? Can people train their own animals? Absolutely. They absolutely can. But you may need to get an expert in the ADA world, a consultant involved, to say, okay, I will run the dog through some training, and we can then see if they are properly trained or not.
Or mini horse.
Very important.
Or mini horse.
Or a mini horse, or a fish, or something like that. But officially, ADA does, especially from the customer aspect, ADA says dogs. From the employee aspect, the employer aspect, it does depend on your state or your state laws, and then just, what your company has done in the past and what your policies are. Above all, remember that this conversation should be handled with empathy, understanding, and professionalism to ensure the employee that they feel supported and heard, and so they don't turn around and sue you. With that said, before wrapping up, I just wanted to say, if you love JC's radio voice, did you know that he is an experienced event MC?
Oh,
and
Wendy.
if you need an MC for your event, reach out by visiting jimconnors.net.
Too kind. I appreciate you.
No problem. With that said, we hope this information has been helpful. Thanks for joining us. Take care, and please go check out the ADA National Network, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the AskJan Network for free advice and information. Take care, everybody.